Most people look at the 14 highest peaks on Earth and see a list of altitudes. But for a high-altitude mountaineer, height is just a number. The real metric that matters is the one that determines if you're coming home. In this video, we're ranking every 8,000-meter mountain not by how tall they are, but by your actual statistical odds of survival. We'll analyze each peak through 4 critical lenses that directly determine its survival rate, its technicality, the inherent objective hazards, the unpredictable weather volatility, and the available infrastructure. And as you'll see, the most technically challenging peaks aren't always the deadliest. We're moving from the peaks where infrastructure and fixed lines have made ascents relatively common to the true killer mountains. Number 3 is a peak so technical that even elite climbers hallucinate from the sheer mental strain of staying alive. Number 2 is a mountain that was considered unclimbable in winter for nearly 70 years. And the number 1 spot on this list isn't K2 or Everest. It's a massif so unstable that for every 3 people who stand on the top, 1 has already been claimed by the mountain. Let's look at the data. We begin with the Turquoise Goddess, statistically the safest 8,000-meter peak on Earth. Its relatively straightforward slopes and easy access from the Tibetan side have made it a popular training ground for Everest. But don't let its reputation fool you. Even the safest 8,000er has teeth. What makes Cho Oyu relatively safe? First, when we talk about technicality, the climb is relatively straightforward, requiring more endurance than technical rock climbing skill. However, the objective hazard means you are still at the mercy of crevasse falls, especially on the broad summit plateau. For weather volatility, conditions can change rapidly, leading to whiteouts, but extreme storms are less frequent than on other peaks. Crucially, the infrastructure here is strong, with well-established fixed lines, multiple camps, and experienced guiding services contributing significantly to its safety record. Despite its high survival rate, Cho Oyu demands respect. In 1954, a legendary Austrian expedition, after making the first ascent, was forced to survive a night in a snow hole without sleeping bags due to a sudden storm. It's a stark reminder that even on the easiest peaks, the mountains dictate the terms. Next is G2, the shortest of the Karakoram giants. It's often paired with its neighbor, G1, but G2 is significantly safer. Its high survival rate is a testament to a direct route, but it hides significant dangers. So, what are the factors influencing G2's survival odds? For technicality, the road involves steep snow and ice sections, particularly through the treacherous Gasherbrum icefall. This icefall is a labyrinth of crevasses and seracs, and the upper slopes are prone to avalanches, making objective hazard relatively high, especially after fresh snowfall. Weather volatility in the Karakoram is notoriously unpredictable, with rapid shifts from clear skies to violent storms. And for infrastructure, while fixed lines are generally established, the remote location means rescue operations are complex and time-consuming. The mountain is famous for its hidden dangers. In 2011, Corey Richards, Simone Morrow, and Denis Urubko completed the first winter ascent and were nearly wiped out by a massive avalanche on the descent. Richards's raw footage of his face covered in snow, sobbing into the camera, became an iconic image of modern mountaineering, highlighting that even on G2, the mountain usually lets you up, but it's the descent that truly tests your luck. Lhotse, the 4th highest mountain in the world, shares much of its infrastructure and initial route with Everest. This proximity significantly contributes to its relatively high survival rate. But how does a mountain with such a formidable face maintain these odds? For technicality, the infamous Lhotse face is a 1,125-meter wall of blue ice, requiring sustained front-pointing and ice climbing techniques. The objective hazard is moderate, while the Khumbu icefall, shared with Everest, is highly dangerous. The Lhotse face itself is less prone to massive avalanches than some other peaks, though icefall is a constant threat. Weather volatility is high as it's exposed to the same extreme weather systems as Everest, with high winds and sudden storms. Crucially, its infrastructure is strong, benefiting from the extensive fixed lines, Sherpa support, and rescue capabilities established for Everest expeditions. Despite the shared infrastructure, the Lhotse face is a technical nightmare. If you slip here without being clipped in, there is nothing to stop you. One of the most incredible stories is from 1990, when Tomo Chezin claimed a solo ascent of the south face, a wall so difficult that many experts still debate the veracity of his claim. It remains one of the greatest mysteries in Himalayan climbing. In our technical ranking, Lhotse was number 6, but here it sits at number 12 in survival. This is the Everest effect. Its proximity to the world's highest peak provides an infrastructure that makes a very hard mountain statistically much safer. Everest is the ultimate paradox. It is the highest mountain on Earth with the most infrastructure, bottled oxygen, and experienced guides. Yet, it remains a graveyard with hundreds of bodies still on its slopes. How does the world's highest peak balance its allure with its inherent dangers? For technicality, while it has challenging sections like the Khumbu Icefall and the Hillary Steppe, the standard routes are not as technically demanding as K2 or Annapurna. However, the objective hazard is high. The Khumbu Icefall is constantly shifting, and Sarak Falls are a risk. But the biggest hazard has become the human factor, overcrowding. Weather volatility is extreme as it's exposed to the full force of Himalayan weather with high winds, extreme cold, and sudden storms in the death zone. Crucially, its infrastructure is very high, with extensive fixed ropes, ladders, Sherpa support, and commercial expeditions providing significant safety nets, though these can also create new hazards like traffic jams. The survival rate has improved over the decades, but the human factor is now the biggest hazard. In 2023, we saw a record number of deaths, many due to overcrowding in the death zone. When you are stuck in a traffic jam at 8,700 meters, your bottled oxygen is a ticking clock. The most famous survival story is Beck Weathers from the 1996 tragedy. Left for dead twice, he literally woke up from a coma in the snow and walked back to camp with his hands frozen solid. Everest is a mountain where money can buy you a chance, but it can't buy you a guarantee. In our technical ranking, Everest was surprisingly low at number 9. This is because its main dangers are environmental and human-made, not purely technical climbing. The massive infrastructure, while creating new hazards like overcrowding, significantly boosts its survival rate compared to its raw technical difficulty. Broad Peak, originally named K3, sits just across the glacier from K2. While often seen as an easier 8,000er, its long summit ridge is a deceptive trap that contributes to its lower survival rate. What makes this seemingly accessible peak more dangerous than it appears? For technicality, the climb involves steep snow and ice, but the main challenge is the sustained effort required on the long summit ridge. The objective hazard includes crevasses on the approach and potential for cornices on the ridge, but it's less avalanche-prone than some other Karakoram peaks. Weather volatility is high. Like all Karakoram peaks, it experiences rapid and severe weather changes, often trapping climbers on the exposed ridge. For infrastructure, while fixed ropes are usually established, the remote location and lack of extensive commercial operations means self-sufficiency is crucial. Many climbers reach the false summit and realize the true summit is still an hour away across a knife-edge ridge. At 8,000 meters, that extra hour can be the difference between life and death. This mountain is forever linked to the legend Hermann Buhl. Just weeks after making the first ascent of Broad Peak in 1957, he fell through a cornice on the nearby Chogolisa. His body was never found. Broad Peak is a mountain of almosts, where the finish line is often further than it looks. Shisha Pangma is unique as the only 8,000-meter peak located entirely within Tibet. It was the last of the 14 to be climbed, largely due to political restrictions, and its survival rate is significantly impacted by its hidden dangers. What makes this politically isolated peak so treacherous? For technicality, the standard route involves steep snow and ice, but the main challenge lies in navigating complex glacier terrain and exposed ridges. However, objective hazard is very high. Shisha Pangma has a dark history of massive avalanches, particularly on its broad faces and approach slopes, with Sarak Falls also a constant threat. Weather volatility is high as it's exposed to severe weather systems from the Tibetan Plateau, with high winds and sudden heavy snowfalls. For infrastructure, while fixed lines are common, the remote location and fewer commercial expeditions mean less immediate support in emergencies. The mountain is statistically safe on paper, but it has a dark history of massive avalanches. In 1999, the legendary Alex Lowe, considered by many to be the best climber in the world at the time, was killed by an avalanche that came out of nowhere. His body wasn't found for 16 years, preserved in the ice. Shisha Pangma is a chilling reminder that even on a lower 8,000er, the mountain can reset the board at any second, often with fatal consequences. Also known as Hidden Peak, Gasherbrum I is remote and rarely climbed compared to its neighbor G2. The approach is long and the technicality is much higher, contributing to a noticeable drop in its survival rate. What makes this remote peak so much more dangerous than its twin? For technicality, the Japanese couloir is a steep, narrow gully requiring advanced ice and mixed climbing skills, often funneling rockfall and icefall. This couloir is a significant hazard, and the upper sections are exposed to serac falls and avalanches, making objective hazard high, especially after new snow. Weather volatility in the Karakoram is extremely volatile, with short, unpredictable windows and rapid onset of severe storms. Due to its remoteness and lower popularity, infrastructure is minimal, requiring teams to be highly self-sufficient. The survival rate drops here because of the technical Japanese couloir. In 1975, Reinhold Messner and Peter Habeler did something that changed mountaineering forever. They climbed G1 in pure alpine style, no fixed ropes, no high camps, and no bottled oxygen. They went from base camp to summit and back in just 3 days. It was a suicide mission that proved the impossible was possible, but also highlighted the extreme risks involved in pushing the limits on such a formidable peak. Makalu, the 5th highest mountain, is a technical beast known for its perfect pyramid shape. Its survival rate, while still high, is primarily maintained because only very experienced teams usually attempt it. What makes this visually stunning peak such a formidable challenge? For technicality, the final summit pyramid is a vertical wall of rock and ice, requiring sustained technical climbing rather than just walking. While the notorious French couloir can funnel icefall, Makalu is generally less prone to massive avalanches than some other peaks, making objective hazard a constant concern due to rockfall. Weather volatility is extreme, as it's exposed to fierce Himalayan winds that can exceed 200 kilometers an hour, literally blowing climbers off the face, and rapid temperature drops. For infrastructure, fixed lines are common, but the sheer technicality and exposure mean that rescue is incredibly difficult, and self-reliance is paramount. The French couloir is a notorious bottleneck. In 2006, the great Jean-Christophe Lafayette, one of the best climbers in the world, disappeared while attempting the first solo winter ascent. His fate underscores that Makalu in winter is a different planet, where even the most skilled mountaineers can be overwhelmed by the mountain's raw power. The White Mountain was the last 8,000-meter peak in Nepal to be climbed. It is famous for its massive south face, a 4,000-meter wall that has seen some of the most heroic failures and tragedies in history. Its survival rate drops below 90% due to its unpredictable nature. What makes Dhaulagiri so uniquely dangerous? For technicality, routes often involve complex glacier travel, steep ice, and mixed climbing on exposed ridges, with the south face being one of the biggest and most challenging walls in the world. The objective hazard is very high. Dhaulagiri is highly prone to massive avalanches, especially on its vast faces, with serac falls and crevasse dangers also significant. Weather volatility is extreme, as the mountain creates its own weather systems, often trapping climbers in storms that can last for weeks, with rapid changes in conditions. Due to its remoteness and challenging nature, infrastructure is limited and rescue operations are exceptionally difficult. In 1969, a massive avalanche wiped out an entire U.S. expedition, killing 7 people. Dhaulagiri is a mountain that demands profound respect. It's so big that it creates its own weather systems, often trapping climbers in storms that last for weeks. It is a peak where the sheer scale of the environment can overwhelm even the most prepared expeditions. Manaslu has recently become the new Everest for commercial expeditions, but its survival rate is deceptive. While the climbing is often considered easier than some other 8,000ers, the objective hazard is extreme and unpredictable. Why does this seemingly accessible peak claim so many lives? For technicality, the standard route involves steep snow and ice slopes, generally less technically demanding than peaks like K2 or Annapurna. However, objective hazard is extremely high. Manaslu is infamous for its massive serac falls and avalanches, particularly on the standard route, which can strike without warning even in established camps. Weather volatility is high as it's exposed to rapid weather changes and heavy snowfalls, which exacerbate avalanche risk. For infrastructure, while commercial expeditions provide fixed ropes and camps, the inherent objective dangers remain a significant threat. In 2012, a massive serac collapse triggered an avalanche that swept through Camp 3 at night, killing 11 people in their tents. This is the technical terror of Manaslu. You can be a perfect climber and still be killed in your sleep. Furthermore, the true summit is a tiny exposed ridge that many commercial teams don't actually reach, stopping at a lower point instead. To stand on the real top of Manaslu is to balance on a knife edge where one gust of wind ends everything. In our technical ranking, Manaslu was surprisingly low at number 12. This stark difference highlights how a mountain can be relatively straightforward to climb, yet incredibly dangerous due to its inherent objective hazards, making it a prime example of where technicality diverges from true survival odds. The third highest mountain in the world, Kangchenjunga, is a massive, sprawling massif. It is remote, technically demanding, and statistically much more dangerous than Everest, with a survival rate that reflects its formidable nature. What makes this sacred mountain so lethal? For technicality, the climb involves sustained technical rock and ice climbing at extreme altitude, particularly on the upper sections and exposed ridges. The objective hazard is high. It's prone to avalanches and serac falls, especially on its complex and heavily glaciated terrain, with the sheer scale of the mountain meaning objective dangers are widespread. Weather volatility is extreme, as it experiences some of the most severe and unpredictable weather in the Himalayas, with rapid onset of storms and extreme cold. Due to its remoteness and the difficulty of the climb, infrastructure is minimal, and rescue is exceptionally challenging. The survival rate is low because of the extreme altitude combined with technical rock climbing near the summit. But there is a unique historical fact here. The first ascenders in 1955, George Band and Joe Brown, promised the Chogyal of Sikkim that the summit would remain untouched. To this day, most respectful expeditions stop a few feet short of the actual highest point. It is a mountain of ghosts and gods, where the descent is often a desperate race against oxygen depletion and the mountain's relentless power. The Killer Mountain. Nanga Parbat is a 4,000-meter vertical rise from the Indus Valley, the largest such rise on Earth, presenting an overwhelming challenge that has claimed countless lives. Why does this mountain earn such a terrifying nickname? For technicality, routes involve extreme mixed climbing, massive ice walls, and exposed ridges, with the Rupal face being the highest mountain face in the world, a colossal technical undertaking. The objective hazard is extremely high. It's highly prone to massive avalanches, especially on its vast faces, with rockfall and serac falls as constant threats. Weather volatility is extreme, as it's known for sudden violent storms and extreme cold, which can trap climbers for days on exposed terrain. Due to its extreme difficulty and remoteness, infrastructure is almost non-existent, making self-sufficiency and independent rescue capabilities paramount. The survival rate is a terrifying 80%, meaning 1 in 5 people who try to climb it don't come back. The most legendary story is Herman Boole's 1953 solo first ascent. He was so exhausted he began to hallucinate, talking to a companion who wasn't there. He survived a night standing up on a narrow ledge at 8,000 meters, fueled by Pervitin, methamphetamine, and sheer will. Nanga Parbat doesn't just test your lungs, it tests your sanity, pushing climbers to the absolute brink of human endurance. The Savage Mountain. K2 is widely considered the hardest mountain on Earth, While Everest is a trek, K2 is a climb from start to finish, demanding unparalleled skill and resilience. What makes K2 the ultimate test of mountaineering? For technicality, it requires sustained high-angle ice and mixed climbing at extreme altitude, with sections like the Bottleneck and House's Chimney legendary for their difficulty. The objective hazard is extremely high. The Bottleneck is directly beneath a massive unstable hanging serac, making avalanches and icefalls frequent and often catastrophic. Weather volatility in the Karakoram is notoriously fierce and unpredictable, with short, brutal windows and sudden, violent storms that can trap climbers. For infrastructure, while fixed ropes are common, the extreme technicality and remoteness mean that rescue is almost impossible, and self-reliance is critical. The survival rate is 75%, meaning for every 4 people who summit, 1 dies. The most feared section is the Bottleneck, a narrow couloir directly beneath a massive hanging serac the size of a skyscraper. If that ice falls while you are under it, you are gone. In 2008, 11 climbers died in a single day when the serac collapsed, cutting the fixed lines and trapping everyone above 8,000 meters. K2 is a mountain that offers no mercy and no easy way down, a true test of human limits. In our technical ranking, K2 was crowned the undisputed number 1. Here, it sits at number 2 in terms of survival odds, highlighting that while it demands the utmost technical skill, its dangers are slightly more predictable than our deadliest peak. This is it, the deadliest mountain on Earth. Statistically, Annapurna I is the most dangerous place a human can stand, with a survival rate that is almost hard to comprehend. Why does this mountain, not the highest or most technical, claim so many lives? For technicality, while not as technically demanding as K2 in terms of sustained rock and ice climbing, its routes involve complex glacier travel and steep exposed sections. However, the objective hazard is catastrophic. Annapurna is a massive, unstable pile of ice and snow that sheds avalanches constantly, making objective dangers pervasive and unavoidable. Weather volatility is extreme, as it's highly exposed to rapid and severe weather changes, heavy snowfalls, and high winds, all of which exacerbate the already extreme avalanche risk. Due to its extreme objective dangers and remoteness, infrastructure is minimal, and rescue operations are incredibly hazardous and often impossible. The survival rate is a staggering 70%. That means nearly 1 in 3 people who summit Annapurna never return. The reason isn't technical climbing, it's the mountain itself. Annapurna is a massive, unstable pile of ice and snow that sheds avalanches constantly. There is no safe route. Even the first ascenders in 1950, Maurice Herzog and Louis Lacanal, were so badly frostbitten they had to be carried down the mountain, losing almost all their toes and fingers. Annapurna is the ultimate upper limit, a mountain that proves that sometimes the Earth simply doesn't want us there. In our technical ranking, Annapurna I was number 2, a testament to its challenging roots. But here, it stands as number 1, the deadliest of all 8,000-meter peaks, demonstrating that sheer objective hazard can be a far more lethal factor than technical climbing difficulty. So, which mountain truly earns the title of the ultimate upper limit? Is it the one that demands the most skill, or the one that offers the lowest chance of survival? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. See you on the next peak.